Okay, so this question comes from the 2008 AP exam, and now after the lesson today and yesterday, we might and should have all the tools in our toolbox to do everything that you see here. And so the idea then is going to be to go through this problem step by step so that we can have the confidence to attack an AP exam, because this, like I said, comes directly from the 2008 AP exam. So number 3 says Gala land produces 3 final goods: bread, water, and fruit. The table above shows this year's output and price for each good. Calculate this year's nominal GDP. Okay, nominal means actual, ladies and gentlemen. That means we have to get a sum of all the values of the final goods. So that means we have to get the value of this across and add it all up. And we only did one example of this. It's been a while since we did this, so maybe this is a good review. So we know 400 times 6, of course, is $2,400. 1,000 times 2 is $2,000. And 800 times 2 is $1,600. And then the sum of this, I'm going to add it all up: 2,400 plus 2,000 plus 1,600, 245, and then 6. This is $6,000. So your answer for letter A is $6,000. You get 1 point on the AP exam for that. Now, the point here is that this is not hard to do, but you had to know to do it. That's the problem there. It's all about remembering what the definition is asking and how to attack the question. So in letter B, it says, assume now that we have that the deflator price index is 100 in the base year, and then 150 this year. Calculate the following. Okay, so they want to know the inflation rate expressed as a percentage between base year and this year. Okay, to do inflation rate, we know new minus old divided by old times 100 is always the way that we find inflation. They tell us that our current is 150, the base year is 100. So 150 minus the hundo divided by that hundo times the hundo. This is going to give you the solution. That means this is 50 over 100, ladies and gentlemen. And every day of the week and twice on Sunday, that is 50%. Oops, look what I did there. I wrote a dollar sign. Silly rabbit, tricks for kids. There we go, 50%. All right. And so now they want you to calculate this year's GDP. Now, we just spent a long time doing this. That means we have to use the deflator to modify the nominal into real. That might have been why this was a very missed question, because kids didn't see the vocabulary connection. Remember, the deflator equals nominal divided by real times that hundo. So punching the numbers in, we know that the deflator is 150, because they said this year, and that equals the nominal of 6,000 divided by the real times 100. Now, you have 2 ways you can approach this. We can do all the algebra. Remember, we can divide both sides by that 100, then multiply both sides by the r, and then divide that, because 150 divided by 100 is 1.5. So this would be 1.5 r equals 6,000. And so that means then that this would become 6,000 divided by 1.5. You could do that if that's the way you want to do it. And I could itemize that out for you here. 150 equals that 6,000 divided by r times the 100. Divide both sides by 100 means 1.5 equals 6,000 r over r, sorry. Multiply both sides by that r, 1.5 r equals 6,000. And then divide both sides by 1.5, r equals 6,000 divided by 1.5. And so 6,000 divided by 1.5 is $4,000. If you, on the AP exam, if you can't do that in your head, you'd have to actually set up the long division and do it. Because remember, you don't get a calculator to do it. So the answer over here, this year's real GDP equals $4,000. Now, there is an alternative way to do this, and this is what I was trying to explain to you guys, and I actually prefer what I'm about to show you. I know prices increased by 50%. So I'm going to ask myself, what number plus 50% of itself equals 6,000? And I, in my head, can solve that. It's kind of like factoring. You figure it out a little bit. So I know that 4,000 plus half of itself, 2,000, equals 6,000. You see, this might be easier for you than going through the whole equation. I don't know. So next then, letter C says, since the base year, workers received a 20% increase in their nominal wages, nominal increase. If workers face the same inflation that we calculated, and we calculated 50%, What happened to their real wages? Explain. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we spent the lion's share of yesterday doing. To calculate this, we have to know what's called the Fisher formula. Now, this Fisher formula, it's unlikely you're ever going to actually see this name come up, but what this basically says is nominal minus the percentage inflation equals real. Now, we know that those workers got a 20% raise. That's what it just said in the problem. They said they got a 20% nominal increase. The inflation rate was 50%. That gives us a real number of negative 30%. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are very bad. They did not keep up with the rate of inflation. Their real wages went down, and they didn't go down a little. They went down a lot. And so over here, then, it's going to say, explain what happened to their real wages. You're going to say their real wages decreased by negative 30% because their nominal increase of 20 was smaller than the rate of inflation of 50. And there'd be 2 points for that. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points already. We might have missed this point, but we should have gotten the rest. And we're in business. We're doing very well. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 points, 4 out of 5. That's pretty good. Remember, you only need a 55% on the AP exam to get a 3. That's credit to the University of Illinois. We're right now 4 out of 5, right? So 1, 2, right? 3, 4. Okay, 4 points. I'm sorry. We're 3 out of 4. Sorry. We're doing very well. And that's assuming you got that wrong. We'd be 4 out of 4 otherwise. And so now, looking at letter D, if the GDP deflator in Galaland unexpectedly increases, would a borrower with a fixed interest rate be better off or worse off? And so in order to get this, you got to remember that grid that we talked about yesterday. And ultimately, what we learned yesterday is that we have this organization of people helped by and hurt by inflation. We know people that are hurt by inflation are what we call creditors, people who save, and people who are on fixed incomes. But we know borrowers are always helped. We know borrowers are always helped because borrowers, if they have a lot of inflation, are actually using the devalued money to pay back their debt. That means they're giving people stuff that is worth less to pay back their debt. And we learned this, and they tried to trick you with that fixed interest rate because they are trying to make you remember this, but put that out of your mind. A fixed interest rate means I'm paying the same amount back every month forever. And so the answer to this question is, would a borrower with a fixed interest rate loan be better off or worse off? They'd be way better off. Because of the inflation, they're actually paying less money back. You could use the Fisher formula for that again if you wanted. And so their nominal interest rate, let's say it was 7%. And then let's say the rate of inflation was expected to be 2%. That means that the real should have been 5%, right? And this would be what they're paying back. Banks would like that. But if the rate of inflation was unexpectedly, instead of 2%, let's say it was 6%, that means the bank is only really getting 1% now because of the unexpected spike in inflation. The bank is hurt, the borrower's helped. And that's your answer to letter D.